We're back. This is Renovate and Build with Jim and Sandra, powered by Fair Trade Works.
Let me go home. I'm just too far from where you are. I wanna come home.
Oh, the smooth tones of Vancouver's own Michael Bublé waking us up on this Saturday morning. Thanks for having us around this weekend. Always a nice break away from our regular routines at Fair Trade Works to come and talk to you about building and renovating. It's our favorite topic, isn't it, Jim?
It sure is, Sandra. And if you're joining us via podcast, you'll always tell that our next guests always enjoy talking homes, especially floors, hardwood floors to be exact. The first clue is that they bring hardwood everywhere they go. Please welcome Director of Sales and Marketing at Cypress Hardwood, Jeanette Martin. Good morning, Jeanette.
Jim and Sandra.
Good morning. Do you have any big plans for this weekend?
Absolutely. My favorite thing is I've recently purchased a power assist bicycle. Wow. And I live about 3.5 kilometers away from Fort Langley, so I head to the farmers markets, load up my little basket, and come home. So I'm very much into buying local, eating local, and of course the exercise component.
I was going to ask about those bikes. See, now you're going to be my new shopping expert.
Power assist, what's that? Has it got a little bit of...
It still has 7 gears. It's a it's a Schwinn, built in Canada, bike, and it's got a power assist, so you still have to pedal, so it's not quite a moped.
Right.
It can go up to 28 kilometers an hour, which I haven't taken it that much because I'm a little afraid of it, but you still get a great workout. But
it does help you with the hills and things like that.
Oh, yes. yes. I can put more in my basket then.
Now, Jeanette, we're going to start off on a little more serious tone today. It's not all about great hardwood sometimes, especially when we don't know where it comes from. I had the, awakening, I guess, to watch the recent show 16 by 9 on global television that I'm sure many of our listeners saw. If you didn't, the show features illegal harvesting of wood in Russia. What an eye-opener. For everyone at home that didn't get to see it, let me just encapsulate some of the details. Basically, a former Marine by the name of Sasha von Bismarck, who runs the Environmental Investigations Unit, went to Siberia, filmed Russian mobsters illegally cutting hardwood, and then followed the trail all the way to China, where these protected woods then come and are processed. And we have to remember that these Siberian forests are the home to the Siberian tiger. Mm-hmm. Only 500 of them left in the entire world, and we're just watching their habitat be completely destroyed by these woods being taken out. The part that I couldn't believe was the carcinogenic substances they say that are in these woods.
Absolutely.
And then the really scary part was finding that the $5.7 million worth of this hardwood has made it into our own port here of Vancouver and into our homes.
Absolutely.
How does this happen?
Well, it happens because there's such that demand for hardwood floor in your home. You know, you look at any magazine, and when people are shopping for homes, their top 100 they want to have is that they have to have hardwood floor in their homes. Mm. So they just choose to go anywhere, and they don't ask the questions. When you choose to come to a hardwood floor company, they just want to make a sale, and to make a sale, they will get in inventory and not check it. To me, it was very eye-opening to me as well. I saw a portion of that particular episode about 3-4 months ago. It kind of hit my Google alerts that I followed to do with hardwood floor, and I was like, wow, how can it be happening? It's because there's a lot of underhanded people in this industry. There's a lot of people that don't follow what I call COC, the chain of custody, with the particular hardwood floor. Shady business deals in that particular episode. They called it the Russian mafia that are controlling it.
I saw guns to people's heads cutting down these
absolutely.
Pine forests.
And what was really interesting for me to watch is to see how the floor was being manufactured over there. The fellow that had the hidden camera, Sasha, and watching it, the finishes being applied by hand. And if that's toxic, and these people weren't wearing masks, they weren't wearing gloves on their hands, that floor is being packaged up. So whatever gases or formaldehydes that are used in the finish are being trapped in that hardwood floor, being packaged, and then being shipped over to here. And you will ask a hardwood floor company, much like the one fellow that had the hardwood floor company here in Canada, who chose to go open up in China, only to have a huge eye-opening. that they were willing to do documentation to whatever you wanted the paper to say.
That was my next question, right? How does the paperwork get passed? But I guess that's, you just answered that question. So
They just did fraudulent documentation.
Yeah. Well, and how we challenge our manufacturers, both in Canada, Europe, and the U.S., and even we do deal with some places in China, is that we will take a look at the documentation, and if they don't have the European standards, like the quotation mark, or the testing on it, or the National Wood Flooring Association approval, or some sort of recognizable, researchable, honorable association, we're like, no, we don't believe you.
Mm-hmm.
And we won't buy. We won't buy. We won't even research it anymore. We'll just say no. We'll just not. It was a huge eye-opening, and this is why I wanted to talk to you about it, because it's all a buzz in our industry, and some of the stats were 80% of the hardwood floor coming into North America could be traced to being illegal. And the one sentence that resonated with me is they asked someone, would you knowingly buy a stolen car and drive it every day? Well, when you're buying your hardwood floor, if you aren't that informed consumer, and don't ask the question, where did it come from? Then you chose to buy it. You're almost as guilty of putting a stolen hardwood floor out of a tree, out of a forest, and putting it into your house.
Yeah.
But so many people think when we go to Canadian stores that those products have been researched. We don't realize that even for my own flooring, I have to make sure, as you said, I know the chain of custody.
Yeah,
and
people
where that
understand,
came
like, it's
from.
trafficking. Like, people are trafficking hardwood. People just don't even put two and two together, right?
The biggest thing that I've been into other hardwood floor companies or suppliers, and they tend to put the maple leaf on the package, not the Canadian flag, and it looks like, oh, there's the maple leaf. That must be Canadian.
Yes.
And it's not. Where you have that maple, the full Canadian flag, those big letters that say made in Canada or made in the US or made over in Europe, that's your first indication. And I would even challenge now, because of this story, those hardwood floor companies and go, prove it.
Show me the documentation
that it is made in Canada, such as, vintage hardwood flooring is, 100% finished in Canada and made in Canada.
I think it's a hot topic, because even just change the topic slightly, but even like, big tub suppliers and stuff, they used to have manufacturers in Europe, and it was like, used to say made in Europe, but now it's changed to designed in Europe, right?
Yes.
So everybody's trying to skip around it because the markets are changing and world competition. So sure, it was designed in Italy, but it was manufactured in China, right? So.
And I welcome our clients. I welcome our customers. You call me. You challenge me. You get me to show you that documentation, and you will be proud of that floor. You're not going to have. No, the other question is, some floors may have formaldehyde in it, and it's okay. But as soon as it's cut, that's when the toxins get kicked into the air. They say, oh, it's okay as the plank stands, but when it starts to be installed, that's when those toxic and the off-gassing starts to happen. It's I know, everybody, please watch that.
People need to know, yeah.
16 by 9.
What was that show again?
16 by 9, and it's on global television. And you can all you have to do is just Google hardwood flooring in Russia, and it will pop up for you. And you can watch any of the excerpts, important parts of it.
Let's save the tigers. They're so cute.
Oh, 500 left too. I mean, and you could just see them in the forest. They're just there without trees around them, and loggers everywhere. It's
absolutely
incredible.
It's crazy. Okay, so from the news, back to the processes. Jeanette, can you recap about subfloor prep? We've had a lot of listeners asking us about the process and what they should be demanding from their installers.
Absolutely. We follow the BC Floor Covering Association standard of 1/4 of an inch to a 10-foot span of flatness or levelness, as we say. Your house may be able to put a tennis ball in one corner or rolls to the other corner, but we need your surface flat. And we even take it, depending on the methodology of installation, even a little bit further, sometimes to like an 1/8, because if the floor is not thick enough and it could show absolutely every wave, you want to make sure that floor is nice and flat. One area we didn't kind of talk on last time or speak about is some of the testing. Like, I have one of our sheets here that we use when we go onto a job site, take down the information, and brought my little my humidity, my relative humidity. We want to make sure the moisture content is right. And in the booth here, it's 60%. So we could install my hardwood floor that I have here.
They look nice and
I was going to say they'd like that if we no, not for soundproofing.
No. And that's why when I'm doing, actually in a lot of installations, people tend to put carpet, say, in media rooms because, of course, sound bounces off it. The other one, of course, really important is if you have concrete or you've recently put in radiant floor heat, that radiant floor heat has been turned on, and we take moisture readings of the actual concrete to make sure it falls within that 6 to 9%, because if we go to put a glue down hardwood floor or even a floating floor over top of it, that moisture will still evaporate and you could get your floor buckling or cupping or crowning because the concrete wasn't ready.
That's what I was going to ask. I had hardwood buckle. Is that why I've never seen one of those meters before. Would that be one of the reasons that it could have buckled?
Absolutely. Is that concrete was not tested, or a vapor barrier was not used if your floor was floating. We tend to put a 0.6 mil heavy gauge poly down. Therefore, if any moisture is going to come up, of course, it's going to push out to the vapor channels in the side of your walls. Okay. So that's really important as well.
Yeah. So how does that testing reflect how condos are built?
It's interesting. Some of the things I know about how condos are built regarding concrete is it's really important. If you're on the ground level to, I would say about the 4th level, there's still quite a bit of moisture that's going to be coming up. Say if you've got 1 or 2 or 3 parking levels below, there's always going to be that constant moisture coming up. So you're going to want to make sure that you are using a good vapor barrier, or possibly even a vapor barrier glue like Bostic's MVP membrane. The higher you go, the buildings tend to have vapor vents built into the building, so there's less chance of, say, the moisture affecting your floor. What I do find more back to the leveling is the higher you go in a condominium, because the slump rate, there's a crazy word, that's the mixture of moisture to the concrete to the sand. The higher you go, it has to be more liquid to
pump up there.
Right, so the floor tends to be a little bit more uneven, and it dries differently. So that's more of a concern when you're in a condominium, is how that concrete is curing.
Yeah. People don't know about concrete is an absolute science. You know, when we order concrete, it's the slump rate, it's the rock size, it's the air content. It's unbelievable. When you get into really engineered structures, the concrete is just it's a beast, and it's a living beast. People think, concrete, put it down in 2 hours, it's hard. You know, it never stops curing. You know, 25, 30 years later, that concrete is still curing. It's still letting out moisture, and it doesn't get to its maximum, strength and density till, we put things inside it now to accelerate that, to get it to a structural point within 28 to 30 days, but 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, it's still alive and it's still doing its thing, right? So.
And it's much like hardwood floor, that it is still a living, breathing, almost a spongy item. So that's why with having a relative humidity meter, you understand how that hardwood floor is going to give on and take off moisture. So if you need to keep your room, your ambient moisture to a certain degree, that's what we'll tell you. Between 40 to 60, depending on the material. The floor that I brought here, this Solid Sun product from Vintage, can go between 25 to 70. So if you have a very moist environment or a very dry environment, it's going to perform.
We're going to continue with that in a moment. For those just joining us, you're listening to Renovate and Build. We have Jeanette Martin from Cypress Hardwood Flooring joining us. She's an expert, of course, and you'll hear here some of the topics we're talking about, moisture in hardwood flooring, and that's where I wanted to go next. So if I have a wine cellar, for instance, in the basement that's going to change in temperature, I guess that's a real consideration, isn't it?
It is, and with the research that we've done, the likes of Bostic's as well as Bacco glues, there's a phenomenal product that actually has a moisture barrier, the adhesive, and an acoustical all built into one product. So this would go down onto the floor, especially if you were going to be entertaining in there. A lot of times wine rooms have got, you want to set an ambiance, so you don't want to hear the little pitter-patter of feet or high-heel shoes on it. That's going to help the ambient noise as well. So in a wine room, that's what you'd want to make sure you glue that floor down, use the right moisture barrier, and keep it, again, you're going to have relative humidity when you have a relative humidity moisture meter when you have a wine room.
Now, you guys were talking about condos. Is there a hardwood I should use for condos versus a house?
Engineered.
Okay.
Absolutely. And it's also going to depend on the methodology that your strata says that you're allowed to do. A lot of I would say about 80% of our condominiums in Vancouver tell us they have to float the floor, which means it is put together either by a locking system or it's put together with a bead of glue on the tongue and the groove, because when you buy a condominium, you buy the airspace between the drywall and your hardwood floor becomes part of your contents. Okay. So really important with a little bit of a sideline. I have a brother that's in restoration, that when you get hardwood floor in your condominium, you need to get onto your insurance company and say, I've just upgraded and put $10,000 or $15,000 worth of hardwood floor, and up your content insurance. Okay. So in case something ever were to happen. Some of your higher end condominiums in town, such as Shangri-La, the Wall Center, the Shaw Tower, they like the floor to be glued down. Still engineered, structurally sound to go into concrete, but they like it glued down so it becomes part of structure. It's a lot firmer and there's less chance to have sound transmission because it becomes part of the building. It moves with the building, so it stays a lot more stable. So it all depends, again, with your stratas and insurance, your own personal insurance, and how it all relates. But I much prefer doing a glued down floor because it feels like, especially the empty nesters that are going into condominiums, they're used to that feeling. So when the floor is glued down, it feels like what they came from their house. It's really solid, yeah. Because that was actually one of my next questions. You know, when do you nail down, when versus kind of glue down, right? So that kind of once you pick your hardwood floor, that will also determine how the methodology. Of course, your solid hardwood floors tend to, 3/4 inch by 2 1/4, 3 1/4, up to about 4 1/4 inch wide. That would be a nail down onto a well-prepared plywood subfloor. Your engineered hardwood floors do tend to be made to be glued, because when you take a look at the back of the hardwood floor, these are relief cuts for the glue to adhere to, so you get a really good bond down to whatever your subfloor is. So that will dictate as well.
Fascinating. We could just keep you here for hours talking hardwood. It's like an educate. I feel like I'm going to post-secondary for hardwood every time you're here, Jeanette. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Have fun at the markets.
Oh, I look forward to today's bounty.
We've been speaking with Jeanette Martin from Cypress Hardwood. You can contact Cypress Hardwood by giving them a call at 604-294-0593. I know personally I'd like to take her shopping if you're looking for a condo to find out about your hardwood floor. And if you are looking at renovating or building, Jeanette is definitely the person to contact. You can also check out their website at cypresshardwood.com. That's CYPRESS hardwood.com.
And lots still to come here on Renovate and Build, from hardwood to the latest in security cameras. That's on Product Face-Off up next.
There's still lots more ahead. This is Renovate and Build, powered by Fair Trade Works with Jim and Sandra.